Good evening, everybody. This is Gelvin Valley on Farming Simulator 15. Welcome back. We are still in the process of planting our fields after this past harvest, trying to get them all ready to go for next round. But first, I want to show something that I've been working on. The past, I say working on, it's been hardly a few minutes. The past couple episodes on here, I've kind of spoken a little bit about fire and kind of some of my childhood fascination with it. And, it's just a wonder, and it's a good thing that nothing ever bad happened whenever I touched a box of matches. I think I've been spared quite a lot. But there is a mod for fire in here, and I remember it being used particularly on Gelvin Valley by Atomic 67. I think it was one of his last episodes of the series that he did. I'll try to make a link to that particular video in the description below. But he had a massive fire, and I don't recall where he put it on the map, but his storyline was such that he was helping kind of as a volunteer fireman, if you will, I think he was in some kind of, or maybe it was one of his characters was in a helicopter that took water to the fire and that kind of thing. Now, I don't know. Here, let me just go see where the mod is. I put it in here. I think it's in miscellaneous. There's various kinds of sizes, like very small, small, and then fire. I guess this is small, medium, and large. So, let me just oh, I don't have enough money. It costs 0, but it still isn't going to let me put it. Well, you know what? That's for the best, I suppose. Then I don't have to deal with it. But even at $0, my goodness, even with me being negative, it won't let me put it down. So if I could put it down, it'd land right here on the dirt. You'd wonder, well, what in the world is it burning? Of course, it'd be nothing out here. That's kind of the deal with this particular mod. I looked at the particulars of it a little bit, and it has some kind of neat key bindings. So you can take it and you could put it right here where I'm standing, and then you could step back from it. You would see flames. You could change the color of the smoke. You could extinguish it at the drop of or at the hit of a button, those kinds of things. So someone built that functionality with a fire mod and put it, in a Lua file so that someone could set a fire somewhere and then do things with it. And I've already tinkered with the Lua file, and the one thing I added to it, fire, as we all know, except for out here in the dirt. You could put one out here, but it would be ridiculous because fire isn't going to go in dirt. But we know that if there's combustible material, fire is going to spread if it isn't put out. And so what I did in the Lua file is I monkeyed with the code. I added, it's probably 30 lines all total, that there is a timer in there, and I think I have it set at a minute. After a minute elapses, the mod will load itself again, kind of in a slightly different place than the original. So in other words, and I think it looks out 10 meters, and it's all completely random. It could end up 10 full meters away. It's probably going to be something less. Before, behind, at the side, it doesn't matter. It's all random. So, and then the new one, after a minute as it's there, it also will start a new fire at some random distance around it. So after 10 minutes, what that means is you basically would have 10 fires to contend with. And so if the player is looking to put them out, every minute that would elapse, there'd be more fires to deal with. And I mean, I don't know how I'm going to use it, as if I use it at all. you know, it's kind of just something for fun to see if I can code it at the moment. Oh, look at that. Our trusty sheep followed us out here. Let's continue putting in some canola. So I don't know. Maybe it was all the talk that I had about fires and stuff like that in the other videos that I had, and I can't even remember. Even though it was a short time ago, I can't even remember what all I shared. I just know it was about fires because, oh, I know what it was. I've been looking at a lot of videos here of late. As I work here on my computer, I listen to things, and they were having to do with someone setting a camera up where there was a home fire going, and so you can kind of see, something happened, the fire starts, and you see how long it takes for the emergency personnel to get there with their rigs, and you see how efficient they are or not efficient, as the case may be, in terms of knocking the fire down and getting it put out, and you see how much damage the fire can do in a structure in just such a short period of time. Basically all the ones that I saw, the homes were just obliterated. By the time, and a lot of times these would generally run 20 minutes to 40 minutes, give or take, and so the aftermath is what wasn't really shown. As a kid, I think I described the experience of, where the fire department did get there in time and put it out. They were able to salvage most of the home, but many of these just were beyond, any sort of redemption. I mean, I imagine they had to basically bulldoze a lot and just start over. And some of it, I understand, has to do, with the new building materials oriented strand board, more glue type things versus construction they used in the past that maybe it wasn't quite as combustible. But I guess that's all I'm going to say about that. I really don't know what I'm talking about. But it's just some of these videos, I know some people commented on that was part of the reason some of the structures burn so quickly, so readily, and they could be right. But just thinking about all those fires made me remember Atomic 67's video that he had, and I think I had heard that there was a fire type mod around. I just had never bothered to download it, and seeing him use it kind of in a role play. Whoops. Look at him, he's running. Oh, I can't run over my little sheep. He's actually trying to get out of the way. I wonder if that's in his coding, that if a vehicle comes along, you don't just drive through him, he will literally get out of your way. That's kind of funny. I hadn't noticed that before. That trusty sheep, I think it follows you around. So, but when you're in a tractor or something, it doesn't follow. It's only when you're out of the tractor that it will come running to you. But I do wonder if Marhu, when he did the coding for it, put something in there so that it knows to get out of the way of vehicles. That'd be kind of cool if he did. Our good old trusty sheep. One of these days I need to figure out how to shear that thing. I'm told you can, and you can turn it into wool, but I don't know how to do that. He's kind of just a tag along that I basically ignore. For all I know, it's dragging my FPS down and is taking game resources. Smart cookie, that Marhu. I wouldn't have a clue how he figured out how to code all that. Now let's see if he gets out of the way this time. There he goes. I love it. I had no idea he would do that. That's hilarious. I don't know if anybody's ever noticed, thinking of animals, a trusty sheep here, if you look at the input bindings, there is apparently, I think it's an input binding, there's apparently a way to startle animals, and I think it's been in there at least since Farm Sim 11, but I don't know what the key binding is, or if it's, if you study the Giants code long enough, you start to see some things in there that are kind of really deactivated, if you will, that aren't in the final game product. Um, for example, in one version, I learned there was some Lua coding for, oh, was it magic horseshoes, something like that. Well, I've never seen anything with horseshoes in game. Maybe there's something in Farm Sim 90, but this was something from long ago. I don't remember which version. Maybe it was 17. So there's code in there that isn't active or isn't used, and so maybe the startle animal event is also something that isn't used. Maybe there's no way to do it. I've always thought there's maybe a key that you could press if you walked over to the cow pen, for example, and you pressed it or whatever, you would see cows jump away from the fence, kind of like if you walked up to them and went boo, and like they would do in real life. I don't think they would take very kindly to that either. Alright, we're moving on to the next field here, which I think is, yeah, we're going to head over and do number 19. Kind of making the circuit, and I've already blown my rent period, but I gotta say, that is a handy little mod. Here the other day I was corresponding with Reefy 1952, and I was kind of chuckling because he also is reaching back to some of these older versions of Farm Sim. I don't know, maybe we're just both a couple of old coots, and this is just has more appeal for some reason than the newer version. I don't know. But he's also going back to, oh, it doesn't like, I'm also going to put canola in here because we're still up top. It'll be easy to take it to place where I need to take it. But he also is getting back into Farm Sim 15, at least for part of his playing time. And I know he commented on that to me about the rent mod. And I think he's playing Old Ridge, the Old Ridge map in 15. He's starting that one up again. I know he has a series on it. I'm in the middle of listening to his series. And one of his strategies was basically the same thing that I did here on Gelvin Valley, and I didn't do it soon enough, nor did I do it efficiently enough because, I was just getting walloped by the game, and it was, way harder than I thought it would be, and so I wasn't thinking straight. But it's basically to sell all of your equipment, or most of it, and then rent equipment as needed with a rent mod. Really, it doesn't charge too much to rent it, and I don't know how realistic that is. I think there's some settings, a guy could change it if you wanted. I need to bring a plow up here and kind of clean this edge up. That's kind of bugging my OCD a little bit. It's like I had a stuttering plow or something when I was coming through here. I suppose this corner over here is going to give me the fritz. Yeah, kind of hard to, I would never do this in real life. I back this into the fence just so I could jerk the unit around. But we got it done. I almost think I dropped the plow in here in the wrong place, and that kind of made it harder to take care of that corner. I think that's maybe what happened. So I'm kind of tickled that Reefy 1952 is going back and doing this along with me. I'm already sharing some mods and stuff with him. That'll hopefully make it kind of fun. If they can work decent, that is. These mod things can sure be ticklish, especially with a lot of the tweaks and things I've done to them. I can't say I've been as careful as maybe I should. One significant area of when you do a script, like a Lua script, is getting your script to work in all cases. And you hear the concept sometimes about mod conflicts, and a lot of times where that happens is with Lua scripts, where a modder will program something to happen, and generally when we program something to happen, we either write our own new code. Well, it's always new code, but it's either its own standalone code that does something, or very commonly we are adding to or somehow modifying, superseding, appending, however you want to call it, the giant's own code. And they have tons of coding. So you may pick a particular spot of their coding and say, instead of doing this, do that. And maybe that's innocuous, maybe whatever you're asking there is just fine, and nobody else has ever touched that part of Giant's code, and so it's all good. But a lot of times what happens is other Lua scripter modders touch areas of the code that you are trying to modify. So you have their changes going on and your changes trying to go on, and a lot of times, that's going to result in conflicts. And so one script may work, the other one may not, or maybe both don't work. Maybe your game locks up, maybe it has unintended consequences. It can be a real challenge to deal with it. I know in 17, and I brought this one to 15 also. The mod is actually installed in this game here. It's called Hail Damage, and I made this mod in 17 so that whenever it hailed in game, that eventually it would start to damage. If you had standing wheat or barley, it would start to knock it down and do damage to it, meaning you couldn't harvest it. So it was a real loss. Well, so it's touching certain areas of the Giants code in order to do it, and then I thought, everybody has this thing called the Seasons mod, and so it needs to be compatible with the Seasons mod. And so I had to study a fair amount of the Seasons mod code to make sure that the changes I was making wasn't interfering with their mod and actually could work in concert with it. One of the things I did with the Hail Damage mod is, if the Seasons mod was installed, some of what it would do when it hailed is it would put down hail on the map. And then as the temperature warmed back up, it would melt the hail off. And I did it by kind of borrowing the code, using the code, if you will, that the Seasons mod has for how it handles snowfall. So I just had to trick it into thinking that the hail, was a type of snowfall. Now let me see here. Maybe I'll go back and plant some barley. Is that what I got going on over? Let me see if I can get a map. What am I growing? All right, so I have all this canola kind of on the outlying fields. I'm getting down to the end here. I'm over here in the pasture, and then I gotta travel inland, and I'll have field 8, 37, and 38 left. So 32, I think, is already planted, right? Right. Time flies when you're having fun. So I got barley all over here. Maybe I'll do barley again. We can do barley, right? I can go broke growing anything. I'm confident. It looks like I'm getting a little low on seed. And isn't that convenient? I just was planting canola up there on the hill, and now I'm back to another seed, but it doesn't do anything in my tank. It reminds me of a mod that was available in, I think it was Farm Sim 11, 13, and I think it made a brief resurgence in 17. It was called the More Realistic mod. And one of the features in there that I remember hearing some people complaining about is, to be more realistic, if you change the seed that was in your planter or what have you, it would literally empty it. And the idea was, you wouldn't just switch from, canola to barley like I just did. You wouldn't do that in real life without emptying your seeder entirely to make sure it had not one shred of canola left in it. Oh my, this is having fun going across the slope. Come on. It don't like this. I think it's very uneven in there. It's a wonder I'm able to plant it. I think I described in another video the script I made so it would plant it. It's a little close to the fence, I think. Oops. So anyway, all that to say, like I was talking about the hail damage mod, working in concert with the seasons mod, well, it took some effort to try to get them to work together in harmony. And I think I also incorporated the chop straw mod so that when hail damage happened, it showed chop straw mod textures. And if you don't have those mods present, it still has to work without them. So the modder needs to figure out how to do all that. It's just one of those challenges with script mods in particular. So when you take a script and you bring it backwards from 17 to 15, one problem I didn't have, of course, was there's no seasons mod for 15. So I could, get rid of all that other stuff that I put in there. But there still was such a thing as chop straw mod, so it'll continue working with that here. But I guess the point is all of that is, there's just the more potential for mod conflicts, and I don't have the energy anymore in 15 to try to iron all those out, because, I'm not going to be releasing any of those. And before they get turned loose to the public, it's really helpful if a lot of those things can be ironed out, so you aren't just handing people a lemon. You go to so many mod sites and you look at what download, and someone will say, well, nice idea, but it's filled up my log file with 10 million lines, and locks the game up, and doesn't work as advertised. And I don't know, I don't like putting out things that break other people's setup, and I've already done that to poor Reefy. I feel bad about that. It's going to be a long time probably before he ever hears this episode. I tried to send him SkySwap, which I have working in here. I mean, shoot, we just stop here and look up at the sky. This is not the original sky of Gelvin Valley. It's SkySwap, that's putting a new sky on there. So I know it works, but I don't know why it isn't working for him. So I kind of have a running email correspondence with him to see if we can figure that out. All the joys and pains of getting mods to cooperate with one another. And a lot of times it isn't, well, I was going to say it isn't rocket science, but maybe sometimes it feels kind of that way. It's just finding the right place to tickle the code, if I can put it that way. A lot of times there's multiple solutions to fix a particular problem or to get it to work. Sometimes a solution may take, 100 lines of code, and maybe if you knew what you were doing, which I don't, if you could find that one place of the code you needed to adjust, maybe you could do it with one line. It's just one of those frustrations. I guess it's a frustration. Some people like, and I guess that is part of the fun of modding. Troubleshooting, problem solving. And it's just different. Sometimes when you just want something to work, you get tired of all the troubleshooting of a mod. I know I feel that way there's a lot of things I've done in 15 now in the past few months, whether it's backward adapting some mods, and there's been a lot of time put in on that, and I think I'm at the point it's like I just want it to work the easiest way possible. And a lot of the stuff I've been doing, I'm not even worried if it works in multiplayer. I mean, I'm not playing with anybody else in here, so multiplayer compatibility is kind of another whole specialty area in Lua coding, if you will. It oftentimes you can get it working in single player, but really, if you want to send a mod out to the public, you need to make sure it also works in a multiplayer environment. And it's just been eye-opening trying to learn that part. I say trying to because I'm still not 100% sure I totally get it. Where you have to figure out how to get two computers to talk to each other when one is the host and the other is the client. And to figure out now what information does the host have that the client needs to receive, and vice versa. And oftentimes the things coming from the client are things like key bindings, things that the player does that impacts the game that the host or the server needs to incorporate on its end. And probably most people listening to this probably say, who cares? I guess it's a whole new world for me. I've really enjoyed doing a little bit of Lua programming. I'm not a computer programmer, but it's been a fun exercise to learn it. It's kind of a different type of modding. Well, maybe I can finish this field. We'll see if I can get all the barley in. So, all that to say, there's that fire mod thing after making all those fire videos, and I'm still listening to some. It's sometimes, whether it's Lua coding or here recently for me, I don't know why. I mean, shoot, how many people it shows up in your YouTube recommended list. I don't know how it showed up. It was just a fire video, and it's like, well, that might be something interesting to listen to. And so I know some of them today that I was listening to while I was doing stuff here at my computer. It's just knowledgeable fireman, if you will. He may be a teacher of others, who has live footage, maybe footage sent to him by his listeners of various homes burning, buildings burning, and he's describing what the people are doing on the scene. Maybe what they do well, he's calling out, and he's very professional and respectful, I gotta say, for what may be going on wrong, because he says, I wasn't there, I don't know the scene, I don't know the people, so, and if this is from a professional, it's really interesting sometimes. I know we've all seen this dynamic, and maybe at times we've even participated in it, when we're not being as smart as maybe we should be. But, they call it like the armchair quarterback or whatever, where someone just goes on a rant, well, these guys are idiots, they should have done this, that, and the other thing. And open mouth, insert foot, and if a professional looks at it that way, even things where his mind is probably just screaming, it's like, this is wrong, this is dead wrong, he's very professional and careful about what he says about it, and I don't know, I respect that. Most of the time, it's so easy for any of us, when we don't know or understand a situation, to just pop off with the first thing that comes into our head, and we may be totally wrong because we don't understand the context or circumstances or whatever. So I guess I still have fire on the brain. What can I say? And now that I've made it so it will spread a little bit in the fields, I'm trying to figure out what else to do with it. And this is where, when you mod, you can start to capitalize, if you will, on other mods or things you put together. One thing we all know that fire does is it damages stuff. It burns it up, whatever. And so it'd be nice to have a placeable fire like this. If it spreads, it's one thing, it's pretty easy to get it to spread. That I figured out, about a half an hour, the Lua code to do it. But what would also be nice is to make it do some damage. Well, kind of like I just mentioned a little bit ago, the hail damage mod, I've already figured out some of the commands that I would need to put in the Lua to get it to do damage, say, to a field. So, I don't know, this is where my imagination goes with a mod like this. Right now, it's a placeable, but in game, when would you ever place a fire? I'm thinking maybe what I could do is create a mod, say, for a combine, and then at random have it, maybe if you have a presumption that a maintenance is not being taken care of, maybe there's a bearing that goes out, there's some straw that gets in there, and friction, heat, voila, now you have a fire. And so to where, oops, to where you all of a sudden have a combine fire. Well, so I think that would be easy enough to do, to code something that goes wrong, some random event, and then have the coding plunk a fire right in proximity of the combine. Now I have the ability to have the fire spread, and since I've done the hail damage mod, it seems like I should be able to figure out how to modify the ground wherever this fire is, reduce it to, well, I don't know what I'd reduce it to. The hail damage just kind of reduces it to chopped straw or that kind of thing. Are you going to turn? Oh, you're not. Maybe this one here, instead of chopped straw, I should just reduce it to dirt, maybe. Something that would burn the crop, obliterate it. Maybe a 5-meter circle of fire, if you will. I don't know how big it is. And then as it spreads, it continues to do damage. I may need to figure out how to get it to burn a tree. And, I mean, this is where limitations of the game is going to show up in a hurry. How do you show a tree with flames on it? I don't think I'm smart enough to be able to do that. I know there'd be a way to do it. I just don't know how. So, and it probably would be difficult to, like we're driving here right by the farm, if you had a fire, would it damage the structures? Well, in real life, sure, it sure could. But in game, if it isn't a tree or a piece of machinery, some type of savable object, like a bale, you're probably not going to be able to easily do damage to it. Again, I think there would be a way if you were really, really smart and knew Lua coding inside and out, but I don't think I'd be able to do that. So I don't know. That's just kind of what's on my mind with the placeable fire, to where if I tweak it some more, maybe it won't be a placeable anymore, but it will just come up like probably with a combine. If I put a specialization script on a combine that, with a series of random events or whatever, that it could make a fire. And then it's up to the player. That's the other part that I would need to figure out, is how do you put the thing out? Right now it's a simple key binding. You walk up to the fire and you hit a certain sequence of buttons or whatever, and, well, there you turn the fire off. Well, in real life, you'd have to put water on it or something, and so that's the other part of modding. When you come up with some new idea, oftentimes it leads to other ideas that you have to figure out, or your mod is basically worthless. I mean, that's kind of what I discovered with the rock spawn mod, that I made, where you get a cultivator or plow to start spitting up rocks. And well, now you have to do something with the rocks. You got to be able to have to dispose of them. You got to have a way to carry them. And in Farm Sim 15, there was no way to carry anything in your hands. So let me change this to, oops, I'm going to go back to rape, I think. Sure, why not? Well, 32 is barley. Yeah, 38 I'll do rape. But you know what? I'm looking at the clock and I am over once again, past half an hour, so I'm going to terminate the episode here. Thank you all for watching and listening to me jabber away about nonsense. I appreciate you stopping by. Hope you have a lovely day, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye for now.